Hey guys, thanks for checking out the My Career Path podcast. So today I have another special guest, Dwayne Sparks. Dwayne has been a sales executive and in sales pretty much his whole life. He's got some excellent insights on how to be a better salesman, how to make those connections with people, and how to really understand what they need so that we can actually land the sale. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into it. All right, welcome everybody to the My Career Path podcast. I have another awesome guest with me today, Dwayne Sparks. Dwayne, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Colten. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on to talk about your career path, your expertise. You're another friend of Tim Cormier. He just seems to have a never-ending barrel for us.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Tim's a good guy, and I was really, it was nice for him to reach out to me and kind of connect the two of us. I'm looking forward to the chance to hopefully help some of your listeners.
Great. Yeah, we're happy to have you on the show, and just kind of give a brief introduction about yourself, who you are, what you do.
All right. Well, my name is Dwayne Sparks, and I am in sales. I'm a sales leader. I've been in sales leadership for probably 20 plus years. It's the thing that I love the most about what I do, which is to lead. The selling portion of it is great, but also the ability and the chance to help others and lead them is even more special. I am a new grandfather. My son and his wife, or I should say my son's wife, delivered a beautiful baby girl back here in May. So it's the first grandchild, and so I'm a new granddad.
Congrats.
I'm excited about that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a huge milestone.
Yeah, I've got two kids, a young man and a young lady. They're absolutely the joy of my life, and of course, as I said, a new grandbaby. So excited.
That's wonderful. Tell us a little bit about sales, because I think a lot of people have a little bit of a bad taste with sales, because I think a lot of people have done summer sales, door-to-door sales. But I really think, and just talking with people who are in sales, you get to know people on such a personal level. You have direct line to the customer. I think a lot of people really like that.
It doesn't hurt a lot of times when you're in the field and you've got direct contact with the customer, the customers who have to provide revenue to make that organization that someone may work for actually run, right? The thing about sales is that if there are no sales coming in the door, then there's typically nothing to account for, right? There's really nothing to manage. There's no facilities you don't need. There's really nothing that you have to really vet out or troubleshoot from an IT perspective, because there's no business without sales, right? So I think we got to start there. And now it's not that sales people, as we are known for, to be a little bit, prideful, maybe some egos here. But I think your best sales professionals understand that it's our job, right, to position our customers to understand our product, and for our own company to understand our customers, and so that we can come up with the best kind of solutions and sell the best solutions that we can. So we've got to sell. We all sell. Every single one of us is selling at some point, right? I think that when you have the right people around you, I think sales is an incredible field and a career. And I've been in for over 20 years. It's done really well for me.
Well, perfect. Well, let's kind of go over that. What was kind of the very first job you ever had? Maybe teenager, maybe even younger. What was the first job you ever held?
The first one was probably pretty typical, newspaper route. That's what I had. That's my first.
Nice.
My first gig was the newspaper route, getting up super early, delivering the Boston Herald. I think I was up at 4 a.m. to deliver that paper. That was just short-lived. That was really short-lived. It was ambitious, but it was short-lived because I was not at that time mature enough to manage that kind of a schedule. At that time, especially when I think I was 13 at the time. I think that's when they let me do that.
Wow.
On the back of those trucks there. I also did cleaning though. I've done cleaning. I cleaned toilets as a kid, just to make cash, table cash. So, but My first, I would say, the newspaper gig was that very first one, and then after that, it was working for my very, I would say, my actual first, I would say, the real sales gig was doing this telemarketing, and it was
Mhm.
rough, and I'm gonna tell you that was ugly, but it was a place that I could grow and sort of just kind of work out all the things I didn't know about sales.
Yeah, you find out a lot about yourselves when you're making those phone calls and being with the customer like that. I worked in a call center for a couple of weeks, and it was on your front lines. You're dealing with problems. Anyone who calls in was like a billing, like a credit card billing call
Yeah.
center, and so everyone who called in had a different problem, wanted to get their money back, or it wasn't like we were taking the pleasant calls. Is what it was.
Yeah, those gigs, those early gigs are real good to help you establish a way that you can fall in love with the process. Because sales,
Hmm.
people love sales. They love when the sale happens, but you have to really be more in love with the process of it. You have to be in love with the phone calls and knowing how many phone calls and whatever sort of KPIs or metrics that you're going to use or you have to attain and you have to target. You have to fall in love with the process of it because it could be, you can have days where I've gone days, you got all kinds of dials that have gone out the door, but nothing to really show for it at the end of the day because you didn't get anyone on the call, right, to have a conversation, right? So you have to be able to have that tough skin to know that, you know what, I'm closer to a yes than I was, 200 calls, right? And so that's part of
Hmm.
that part of the some of the early jobs, even a lot of the ones that folks who eventually get into sales don't want to take, but it really helps you out with figuring out a way your process and figuring out how you can fall in love with the process because you got to keep doing the process in order for you to get the results.
Yeah. Well, and I want to kind of talk about a little bit the process that you kind of talk about because there is that, the cold calling and just kind of goes all the way through to where you actually get to know them, you know what they need and going through there. So what kind of sales position are you working currently?
So right now I'm a VP of sales for a company organization called New Horizons South Florida, and this role has kind of evolved a little bit over the last 3 years, particularly with COVID, particularly with
Hmm.
having to be involved. I have been involved in having to let people go from the organization, and then also the good news on the flip side, being able to bring team members back. And right now, today, one of my biggest focuses for the organization is on our leadership and professional development product line, and making sure that we not only provide that internally here, but also that it's a product that we can help get into the hands of more and more customers, particularly in South Florida and also the Caribbean. So that's my focus. I'm really
Hmm.
working a lot in terms of delivering leadership. Some people may call them soft skills. I've heard them called power skills. But anything to help develop the human being, so that he or she or they or them or however terms that we want to use and are being used, so that we can assist those to get better through leadership and professional development. So that's my focus right now. So, I deliver those and sell those kinds of solutions.
So you work a lot with leaders who are looking to improve their organization, improve their training, and improve their employees on a day-to-day basis, right?
That's it. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, the typical leader who would want to work with me is that person who's just seeing that they're not getting a lot of the results in those areas, whether it be technology, whether it be around applications, trainings like Adobe or Excel or Word, or whether it be around leadership training and anything in between. Yeah, those are the people that I tend to work with.
And what do you think was one of the biggest factors that led you into this sales and especially this focusing on helping leaders to kind of get to that position? What was the biggest influence towards that?
Yeah, great question. Because it was a couple of things there. One is my coach. I had a coach when I was in college, and for a year I played at UMass Boston, smaller of the the UMass universities. University of Massachusetts was Division One, and University of Massachusetts in Boston was Division Three, but right up my alley. And I played for a coach there, Charlie Titus, who he was one of the first just incredible leaders that I ever had the chance to play for or even just to be mentored by. And he really helped kind of solidify the need for leadership and how someone in a leadership role could have a very positive impact on others, whether they be a basketball coach or whether they be in sales, a sales coach, or in any other role. So that was really, really important for me in terms of kind of getting into that leadership piece. And what was the other part of your question that you had asked?
Just kind of what helped you decide to stay in the sales role? I mean, you kind of, after you were doing your kind of entry level jobs and whatnot, you kind of stuck with sales. What led you to stick with that besides just loving the process?
Well, what happened prior to me getting into sales is I was actually working as an admissions counselor for the college that I had went to school for, and the college I had played ball for. I was captain of the basketball team there. Eventually, because I left UMass and transferred. But ultimately, that was, having that opportunity to having graduated from Framingham State College, and then I worked for the admissions office, and I was recruiting students. And then my focus was to recruit to help diversify the campus, right? And so I became a full-time admissions counselor. And so I was doing a lot of recruiting. I was doing a lot of selling. I was getting a good, a decent base at that time. It was a salary, it wasn't commission. And then I got the idea. I heard, I had someone recommend to me that, hey, you do so well with admissions, you might be able to, even make a greater career and bring in even more money. Then let's just put it out there, okay? By selling, taking those same skills and translating those into sales. And so that's what I did. I took that, and then I went out. I had a chance to work for. I went there. I had a chance to work for another organization, Stonehill College, and they put me in charge of a program, what's called the State Street Scholars Program, the program that was run out of the bank was in Boston. And they asked me to kind of coordinate and be, sort of part-time coordinate that program, which was, again, it was to sell. Now I had to go into high schools. And as I was recruiting, I was also recruiting students into this particular program, having to, if you will, sell them into this particular program as well. So I got even more experience in that process. And then eventually, I ended up leaving and going right into insurance sales. No salary, straight commission. And I did that, and I went right into that because the upside of it, without the commission, without the base, was very attractive.
Right.
Right, and that's the whole thing. You can do sales. You can have that base that's a part of it, and take X sort of commission rate, or you say I don't need. You go with something that doesn't provide a base, but that reward. So it's more risk, high risk, but higher reward as well. So I went into that mode because I was trying to make money and see if I could do it quickly, and if other folks were doing it, that I could do it. And that was ugly for me. That was hard. That was a challenge. That was like a wake up call. Like, you sure about this? So my recommendation is if you want to go into that, if you already know you have that, you got that grit, right? Like in you to then go for it. But you might want to have about 6 months of savings put away.
Of savings.
Right? Like as you go into it. That's all. Now I'm going to tell you, and this is when you talk about goal setting and where I really learned the value of it. Because when I came in, there was 6 months left on a year-long promo contest for a President's Club contest that they were doing. When I came in and started, I said, okay, can I kind of just take it from the 6 months? What if I achieve in 6 months? Can I still earn the trip? And they said, no, you got to do the whole everything. And I'm going to tell you, I ended up doing the whole hitting that number, right? And that's when I learned about my cards, my goals, writing my goals down. Back then, I would stick tape it right onto my steering wheel so I can see exactly what my goals were. I was
It was
reading
there
it
every day. Yeah.
every single day, right? Because I'm doing a lot of driving around anyway. But the idea of writing down your goals, people think it's all antiquated, but it's not. It's been around for a long time. It's I don't even know if it's magical anymore. It's just intentional, So, yeah,
Well, and I think just going back with sales, and this is something that when I graduated, I was looking at jobs, and that was something that was very attractive about sales is, hey, the pay range is anywhere from, 50,000 to 170,000, just depending on commissions. But when you go from, I had a base pay and now it's completely dependent on what you produce, what you create. That's very scary, I think, and it's scary for a lot of people. So how did you kind of make that jump and decide, you know what, I'm going to try this all commissions thing?
I didn't know any better. I'll be honest with you. No one. I didn't really have anyone telling me not to do it. I just saw what the potential was, and I said, "Well, let me." And I was definitely a person who believed I could do it. I said I probably could do it. I just need to learn it, right? I just needed to learn it, and I needed to be able to know that I could track and follow someone who had already had success doing it. So they let me drive in a car with one of the top salespersons at the time, and that's not always easy because the top salesperson doesn't always. They may not be the greatest teachers.
Right.
I put a little side note. Just because someone was great in sales doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to lead other individuals, and particularly other sales individuals. Because when they made those numbers, it was all about them, right? They didn't have to worry about anybody. They did their own schedule, everything. So I was very fortunate that these particular, actually two of them, were good and okay to have me drive around and tag along my first couple of weeks. So, and I think as others were kind of just jumping in, who are new, jumping in and hitting the leads as quick as they could, I wanted to just go through that and see what these folks were doing and what they were saying, right? Because the objections, it was always about the objections. Like that was the biggest thing. It was never about, well, it is part of delivery and presentation, but it's just being able to manage, the questions, really, at the end of the day, the concerns that a customer has. And I learned that very early from two really great salespeople.
Well, and I think just in referencing back another episode that I did a while ago on a book review, it's called the proximity principle.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is if you have a career or a place that you want to be, in a workplace, or basically you need to be with the people who are already doing that. And to be able to kind of shadow and see what these top salesmen are doing, I think that would be tremendously helpful. And I think it's helpful for just about anyone. And it's one of the reasons I also wanted to kind of start this show is to show people, hey, here's some fantastic people that kind of give a little bit of a guide that if that's something you're looking into, it's a great option to hear from them, hear their stories, hear their likes, their dislikes, their challenges. And just being able to be in proximity to these people, I think is huge.
Yeah, it's like, they say, you got to be in the room, right, in order to hear the information or see what you want to see. So if you got a chance to be in the room with that talent and you can take some time, because, a lot of us come in, and I think that's probably how most people should go into any new environment anyway, right? You go in and you kind of observe first before trying to attack everything. Like say who's the players? How are things working? Before I just jump all in, let me take two steps back so I can understand it and immerse myself in what is, and then I can understand better, what I can make it be or make it become when I start getting out there. So I was just like a dog on a bone, to be honest with you, though, because I just, I was at that time when I'm trying to, start a new family, and I'm trying to get some things done, but then
Right.
I learned quick, right, Cole, and I moved from there and slowly but surely moved myself into something that did have a base, but also had incredible potential and upside.
Just jumping in here real quick to share a website I've used and will continue to use to improve myself and my career. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 20,000 classes to choose from. Whatever you're passionate about, you can find an amazing class on Skillshare to hone your practice. Skillshare has what you need. Learning is so critical for our lives and is a lifelong journey. Even when we finish school, we should keep on learning and keep working to improve ourselves. So you can try Skillshare absolutely free for 1 month. Go to Skillshare.com and sign up and use the code MyCareerPathFree. That's all lowercase, no spaces, to start your first month at no charge. And when you do decide to keep on taking those classes, use the code MyCareerPath30, that's MyCareerPath30, to get 30% off your first year on Skillshare. Keep learning and keep going. Now let's get back to the show. I want to kind of jump back to your education a little bit because you talked about being at Massachusetts and going to the university there. What was your degree in, and what kind of training or certificates do you also have in kind of higher education?
So my highest level of education completed is an undergraduate bachelor's in business administration with a minor in finance and also a minor in computer science as well.
Oh, awesome.
Right. 'Cause I just like to dab in that a little bit. But then I've gone to training organizations, and I've gotten MBA certifications specific to not a full MBA program, but specific to a 2-week boot camp that I took around that. In addition to that, taking several finance courses to make sure that I had my P&L skills together and I could create budgets and the whole deal. But I'll just say one more thing. Another big piece of the education really is books, reading and just reading, right? And trying to stay fairly consistent with that as best I can.
What are some of the books that you would recommend to anyone kind of looking for a sales career or even just improving themselves?
Yeah, I'll give them, I would say, well, if we want to look at like a sales career or selling and how to sell, I'm a big fan of, what we call spin selling. There's a book by Neil Rackman, and it is called Spin Selling. And I think it's one of the best ways for anyone to learn, come out and learn how to sell, because it takes away a lot of the feature benefit things that we all like to sometimes will make a mistake at, right? And if like a prospecting book I know I love is Prospect. It's called Prospect, the Sandler Way. John Russell wrote that book. Just a fantastic book. And then if you go to 10X, I think the 10X book by Grant Cardone is still a really strong book. And it has everything in that book, from sales to personal mentality around it, success principles. I think that the 10X rule is a great book as well.
Yeah, I love getting book recommendations from guests, and there's several of them that I've read and reviewed on the show. I think it's so important because learning doesn't just stop when you're out of school. You have to keep going, and the market and the industry continues to change with AI, digital technology, everything just progressing as it is. You can only be relevant for so long before you have to catch back up.
Right. And it's tough because it's so quick and so much coming at us. So even trying to discern, what's the relevant information from not relevant is very important.
Okay, let's kind of get into your day-to-day job. What did your day look like for today?
Oh, today was, what I love about my job and my career here is that the days can be very different, one day to the next, even if I'm doing some of the same sort of actions. But today was a day of customer meetings, 3 customer meetings today. 2 of those 3 were around the potential to start new initiatives. And so having what I would call discovery calls around those with those customers, finding out what are you looking for? What are the needs? When do you need it? It's basically the who, what, where, when, why, and how of what's going on. And so I would encourage your listeners to think about that. Sales really is, you can make it. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And it's based on knowing the answers to those questions. Who, where, what, it's the 5 W's and how, right? So who, what, where, when, why, and how, depending on the business that you're in, right? So that's going to be important. But and then I had another meeting, which was a follow-up on an existing delivery that we're doing, where we're customizing and tailoring, fully creating from scratch an effective feedback course. And it's the part 2. It's the second part of this course that we're running for them because we delivered it for them last year. and now they're coming back for part two. So those are the fun. And so, but I also could also have part of my day was making phone calls to a bunch of executives and not getting them at all today. That was part of my day too. Okay, so I left a bunch of I
It's
definitely
not all just seeing progress. Everyone's moving along. It's a lot of some
yeah.
of hey, no one's there. Sorry, they're not available.
Right. And, like, so that was hey, I'm leaving voicemails. I'm like, hey, I know you get familiar with my voice, John, but it's me again, all these kinds of things. And so, even with your voicemails, right, you're trying to keep them fresh. You got to be on, like, even just making call, like you have to be, like, I feel like I'm in the huddle, right? Like the call's coming and I'm just like waiting for for that call to answer so I can go into spring into action. But I
That's
love
right.
it. I do love it. But I just know that while we had those meetings and that was good, but man, I made a bunch of phone calls as well. Now I didn't get to the folks or anyone that I would have loved to get to today, but that doesn't mean like work that I put in today. What I know is that even in 3 months, that this work could pay off for me because I've seen it over and over again in my career. So you got to you put the work in today. Whatever you put in today, tomorrow, and the day after that, it always comes back. Sometimes it comes back in one or two customer deals. Sometimes it takes 10 deals to get it to you, but it'll always come back as long as you put in.
Yeah, and I think that's especially true with work and careers because a lot of the times I feel like we all want to take the shortcut. We want to take the quick and
Mhm.
easy. I want to call someone, have them pick up, and we make the sale. We're done. We're moving on. But
Right.
there's so much more groundwork that's always being laid. And if you miss a day, that's so much that you could be missing in the future.
Yeah, because I look at it as anyone else who might be in sports, and you see what your competitors are doing. I assume that my competitors are up and they're making phone calls. That's my assumption. They're making calls. So what am I doing? Right. So if they're
Yeah,
calling my
exactly.
customer and getting the customer before me, now I have to hope that I had a strong enough relationship there, right? So it's a combination of things: building, making these phone calls, and then executing on, having a good phone call once you get the call, and then being able to do your follow up after those calls. So today was probably a combination of all of that, today. And the days fly. That's the only thing. My day flies. I don't ever sit around going, where is the time? Why is the clock not moving? I'm trying to stop time sometimes. Okay. I'm trying to slow it down a little bit, especially the end of the month at times, right? When it's the end of the month
Oh,
and
I bet.
I need that number, right? I want time to slow down. Okay. As best I can, as a kid. So, but yeah, that was my day. Meetings today, new meetings, opening up what I call opening up new relationships and maintaining and continuing to grow existing relationships and still trying to bring on even more new relationships.
What do you think are some of the key aspects of building those relationships?
Great question. Availability, being available to your customer. Now, I'm not saying that people have to, I am a huge believer in work life balance, except my work life balance may not be exactly what others look at as being. I've got the pleasure of being able to work remote, and if I happen to have to go and take care of a doctor's appointment or something, I just get to go do that. And if I have to do that appointment at 11:30 a.m., and then that's when I'm going to do it. Well, that means that there's a likely chance that at 7 p.m. I might be responding to a few emails and things to make sure that things are on track. So for me, it's not a 24/7, sort of obligation to my customers, but it is about being available for them, right, to best that you can. And then, of course, you got to set expectations with the customers when you start having those conversations, which is part of building rapport, letting them understanding
Mhm.
what they're going to need from you and being upfront about what they can expect from you. And then you just meet those expectations and actually you exceed those expectations. And then they'll always your customers will want to come back and continue to work with you because you're not what they call the acronym DUMB. You're not dumb, right? Like most customers think that most salespeople don't understand my business, right? They don't understand my business because we're trying to get the sale, and we're not trying to understand, the really what's going on, which actually costs sales folks when we go in and don't look to understand the customer's full business. What's happening here? What's going on outside of what you just put in front of me here? What else is going on? And so when you do that, then you start to understand that business and how that business runs. And then you can have better conversations, with your customer when it comes time for their training requirements, or at least in my case, when it's training requirements. That's my product. So
I think exactly what you said, being available and being genuine, because
yeah,
I think a lot of people fall into the trap of it's just business. But
right.
really, it's more than that. It's building those relationships. It's building that rapport and going, hey, I want to know how I can help you. This is how I can. If that's what you need, we can make something work. If it's not, well, then it might not work out.
Yeah, the number one, you'll find that the number one sales professionals are going to be considered trusted advisors by the people that they provide services to and work with. The people in a trusted advisor. And like I know, a trusted advisor is not someone, you could never see someone or label someone as a trusted anything if they're never willing to tell you the truth. So, as a trusted advisor, that's my goal. I want them looking at, because I'm going to say to them, well, you can do that, but that type of a solution is only going to check the box for your challenges. If you want to really fill in the entire box, really fill it in, then I'm going to recommend this. And that's all. That's just my job. And if they want to then move forward with what I recommend, then we will. If they don't and they want to move forward in a different way, they still want to move forward with us, that's great. But I have let them know what their alternative was and what I would have recommended. And so I'll even do a follow-up on that, right? Hey, the recommendation was this, you decided that, and we're going to move forward and we're going to make it work and get everything done. So the trusted advisor is not, that another term for it is a challenger rep. The rep who's going to challenge their customer, not in a malicious way, but in a, like you said, Colten, an authentic way. I've been doing this for X amount of years. I just want to share with you what I've seen to make you aware. You have to be able to do that, because if you're not going to do that, you probably won't be able to build a business that's going to sustain.
Well, and just with what you said about being honest and genuine, you have to be honest with both the good and the bad.
Right.
You have to be able to tell them, hey, this is what's going on. This is either a setback, this is bad, as opposed to where a lot of people, I think, can get tripped up on is we're going to be honest about the good things, and on the bad things, we're going to try to delay and kind of, bounce around, beat around the bush a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
to be able to really build that trust, you have to be able to do it through both the good and the bad. Going, this is exactly what's going on. Being able to communicate that effectively, I think, is critical.
I've seen it, and again, my 20 plus years, I've seen it. I've seen scenarios where a salesperson will say they want to be the deliverer of the good news, but they don't want to deliver the other news. And I'm like, there's no way you're going to build a relationship with them.
Yep.
You won't be able to do it, right? You're like, if you're a parent, right, you got to deliver the good and the not so good. But that's what builds a relationship.
Yeah, I think that's what builds trust.
Yeah, that's what builds trust, because you came to me on both, right? So we have to be able to. Now, there's some organizations have a process where they might have a team that sort of does a first initial kind of call. Hey, no big deal. The customer's okay. There's not real problem here. They're all right. But and then if they have a little more of a concern, then maybe they bring that rep in. But for me, I've always managed everything, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just been what's worked for me.
Well, perfect. Well, I want to ask a couple more questions just about the work you do. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in some of the organizations that you've worked with, that you've helped train?
Yeah, my biggest change that I've seen is the willingness or Availability. Let's talk about stick with availability. My customers' availability to consume training, right? Before there's a time you can put a 5 day class in front of somebody, not a problem. We'll go to training for 5 days, especially my technology folks. Right? And they still will do that today. But a lot of my leadership courses, those courses have gone from three full days to now they need to be like a day, or they have to be a series, right? But they're not going to be, but trying to deliver consecutive days has been a change. It's a switch, especially with a lot more people going remote. So I've also seen an increase in my hybrid deliveries, where some people are in person, and I have others who are joining that class remote. Right, so I've seen an increase there. But the biggest change, one of the biggest changes, especially since COVID, the availability and how much time organizations are really want to invest or to have their folks away or at a training. Okay, some still do those consecutive days, but many, and I've gone and built out products so that I can stay up with this. But they're really looking for half day deliveries, out of 2 hours here. I can do, I'll do another 2 hours next week, 2 hours the week after that. Looking for very flexible schedules. That was one of the biggest changes. And then, of course, with AI, especially even with the chat GBT, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of there's changes coming up there in terms of just how I do my marketing, right? In terms of utilizing that technology. And I'm still trying to make sure that we know exactly how we're going to take advantage of it. There's areas that you can make sense, kinds of areas like marketing and emails and those kinds of things. But there's some other things that we could do with that technology. Yeah, and I think that the training and that world is still there. People still need to want to improve their teams and their organizations, but how much time they provide for that is definitely changing.
That's great. I think that's good to hear. People are kind of buying more into they want to keep the people they already have. We want to invest in them. We want to build them up because that's going to make the company overall better, because the people are what make the companies.
Yeah, they definitely. I actually had an organization that said, you know what, we're going to redirect these particular dollars that were earmarked for something else. We're going to redirect these dollars into training, and we're going to also, so it'd be a great way as well, right, to potentially get people reconnected. Make sure they're still engaged with the organization. And also, it was an opportunity to actually have them come into the office because we delivered it on their campus, or at their location. And so we've had organizations trying to be very creative now as well in terms of making sure let's utilize training as a way, again, to sort of build up retention and also get people back into the office, all kinds of things going on with it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. One of the last few questions I have for you. If someone were looking to join your team, if they were going to work directly with you, what kind of traits really stand out to you to make you want to hire that person?
Yeah, for me, it would be someone who already has a mindset to solve solutions, a
Mm-hmm.
problem solver, one who's going to be open to that, be looking at sort of I'm also looking for someone who's probably going to be somewhat outside the box. I don't need them to be too far outside the box, but I've learned that if you stay inside the box in sales, you're probably going to die inside that box, in sales. So you're going to have to really be able to 2%ers, sales reps who I consider to be a 2%er, they just think very differently about their business, right? They take risk as well. They come up with programs. They don't wait and say, "Where's my new program?" or whatever it is. Where's my new product? Whatever that widget might be, whatever they're selling. They don't necessarily just wait for that and say, "Oh man, because the company hasn't created that product, they're limiting me." They get very imaginative and creative about how they begin to sell and consistently sell their product to their customers. So I probably need someone definitely who's going to be what I would consider to be kind of have that A type personality, a little bit A type, with some a high level of emotional intelligence, right?
Hmm.
Like I'm just going to put it there like that. Like whatever that person's skill set is, if there's not a high level of emotional intelligence attached or as the foundation, they're not gonna succeed as quickly as they would as they would if they have that emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to have a sense of when your customer is really getting ticked off at you, and you reach that point. You got to know it, right? Like I tell people, like,
You got to be able to read people in sales. Yeah, you got to be able to meet them where they are.
right. If you can't do that, then it's going to be a struggle, and sometimes the worst thing that happens for folks when they get into sales is that they make a sale, right? Because and they make the sale and they're like, oh, that was easy, you know. But it depends on the sale, right? If it's a small side for whatever the product is that's being sold, if that salesperson knows that this is on a low end of my product line, and this person is buying it, it's probably not that big of a deal. There's probably not a lot of exposure for that person who's making that purchase from you. But if they got to make a big ticket item purchase, no matter even for me, if there's particular things that if I have to purchase it, I have to go to the owner, right, on particular items. So I'm going to have a much more invested interest in the person I'm working with who's going to be selling me that particular product. That makes sense what I'm saying, Colton? Like
Yeah,
you have,
yeah.
the bigger that ticket is, that product is, the more you have to be a great salesperson. Like you have to be a professional salesperson. The lower the ticket item, you may not have to work that hard because the person, like it's like me saying, I just need a notebook. I need some notebooks, right? That's very different than I need
Yeah.
a notebook maker, like a notebook creator, right? Or machine, right? That's going to cost me more money. There's more people got to get involved in it. So your skill set. So I don't want people who get into the sales. They have a first sale and they think that's it. It's so easy, but don't get caught on that, right? You got to be you always be honing your craft, right? So that you're able to sell to the masses and to the C-suite, and then into those decision makers who really going to be able to help put some money in your pocket as well. So
Well, that's great. Is there anything that you wish you could do differently on your career path?
yeah, I was people ask me that question, and I'm definitely a person who doesn't deal with regret. I don't not that I don't even worry about that. Like I just feel like things I've done. But if I was going to make a switch, maybe I think I would have liked to have discovered, really understood the spin selling concept, a lot sooner. I probably came out in my career way heavy on feature benefits. Let me tell you how good this is.
Hmm.
This, but not even knowing if any of that was of interest to my customer, right? Like didn't even have a clue. I'm just saying, let me tell you everything it can do. And
Yeah.
none of it
Let me
that
go through my checklist.
right, and none of it that it could do really resonated with them, right? Because I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't understand their business. I didn't understand what they wanted. So I would have probably loved to have been able to understand, be more uh, of a rapport builder and information gatherer, in the beginning. But other than that, yeah, you always feel like, hey, I could have read this, or I wish I could have read this book. But I think that's the big one. Just kind of
Yeah.
being able to build that rapport and reduce that feature benefit piece.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show, Dwayne. It's been awesome to hear your experience. It's been awesome to hear your tips and tricks about selling and just making sure that you become that trusted advisor. I really liked how you said that. Becoming more from a salesman to a trusted advisor. I think that's a really key
Yeah.
point. One last thing before you go.
Yes.
I love asking people about funny, humorous work stories. Is there any sales pitch that you had that you just kind of look back and laugh at?
Look, I got one. I really feel like even today, this might be a good story. It's not the greatest story, but it's a good story. it is it's a story from today, and it could give someone looking into sales some hope. But I get on a call
Perfect.
today. It was a voicemail, and it's for a C-level executive, and I'm on there, and I'm saying, "Hey, Kim, thanks, Kim, and Kim, let me tell you the reason I'm calling you, Kim, because Kim, what I need, and I'm done, and I'm all excited, and I look back on my little data on my screen here, and the person's name was Ken, 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 Ken. So, what could I do? All I could do is on an email follow up. I sent an email and said, listen, and I put in the subject, hi, Ken, not Kim. So sorry. That's what could I do? So sorry in capital letters, right? And I said, I apologize. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
messed
that's
up.
awesome.
That's all you can do. But I just did that today. And it happens. And I get off the call, and first I'm like, whoa, I'm horrified. And then I start laughing because what can you do? I made a mistake, and it happens. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
gonna happen,
Right.
and you just got to be able to, move on, shake it off, and move on to the next call. That's it. That's what we do. I'm telling you, I've had
That's
so
awesome.
many of those, though. I've had a ton of those. I can tell you know what? I've had so many of those scenarios in my career. I say to people that I'm here to give you hope. I'm just here
That's
to
right.
give everybody else hope. If I can make a nice living off of this, and come on.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys were able to take something away from that, coming from the sales perspective, maybe trying to be a little bit more of that trusted advisor rather than just a salesman. If you did like this episode, make sure to leave a 5-star review. Make sure to reach out to me on my website, mycareerpathpodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to know what careers you guys are interested in, and hopefully I can get someone on the show to talk about it. So until next time, catch you guys later.